then. I'm sorry I'm late. I was working with the auditor on budget. Real nice. You're getting a raise, by the way,
Yeah,
Pastor McMahon. We're going to triple what you've been making.
Praise
It
the
has passed
Lord.
unanimously.
You remember that, praise the Lord, and pass the ammunition in case you all decide that you want to remake that decision?
Okay. All right, good. Good. What do you got for us here, Brett?
Yes, thank you, Judge. So I'm Brett Anderson, the Property and Auto Claims Supervisor at Texas Association of Counties. So I oversee y'all's property claims, which are your buildings and heavy equipment, and then my team oversees the auto claims as well. So we're here today to go over the damages that y'all sustained in that recent storm not too long ago. And I have Lisa McCaig here with
Hi,
us as
Lisa.
well.
Good morning, Judge.
And y'all met her, I know, a couple weeks ago or a month ago at another meeting. And Lisa, is it official? Have you officially?
Yes, I believe I told them in court.
Yeah, so she's your new risk management consultant for the territory. So we're excited to have her. She's been with TAC for quite a while, and she's been serving the southeast part of the state for several years. And you have a great resource in Lisa. One other thing before we jump into kind of the damages, that's news from our end, is we just recently completed a incident response trailer, an emergency response trailer. Since we're in the EOC, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about it. You guys have a great operations center here. What it is we put together, well, we had a trailer that was used for our driving simulator that was retired. So then we refurbished it into an incident response trailer. So it has a few bunks, air conditioning, solar, a generator, power hookups, as well as some TVs you can connect computers to work from, and Starlink. And so the intent is twofold. Is one, if there's ever a bad storm, could be tornado or hurricane, where we can take it out to the area and have somewhere to hub out of to help and visit the counties. Also, we're working on a memorandum of understanding where counties can request it if they ever have an incident, where our law enforcement consultants will bring it out and deliver it to a county that y'all can use. Whether you have an event where you're going to have law enforcement or county officials or employees at somewhere for a long time, they might need somewhere to cool down, or there's an event somewhere far out in the county that you don't have a lot of resources at, it can be available for those types of incidents. So that's just new from our end. Something else we're doing to try and help. And then the storm that I want to go over just real quick. I think it'll be helpful to show you some photos to help you understand what the result was. So this is just a clear photo and a good photo of spatter marks. Spatter marks after a hailstorm are helpful because it shows the direction and the size of the storm. These spatter marks generally just clean a surface, and then they go away over a year or two. So this is a metal surface at the courthouse, and you can see the characteristics of a hailstorm. You have different sizes of hail. All the stones aren't consistent in size or shape or anything like that. So you'll see the larger impacts here are about an inch, with a lot of other sizes mixed in a little bit smaller. So then we just kind of go down, seeing some more photos of the similar stuff. And let me get some ones. You had some windows broken. Let me try and find some little dents to some metals, little chip to painting, which is consistent with hail as well. And then some interior damage as well from the broken windows. And this is the annex. You see some dents to some metal screens. And I'm going to get up to the roof photos real quick. Here's a good one of a lot of spatter. So you can see there's quite a bit of hail in the storm. You guys had a good storm. Mm-hmm. Most of it about an inch or smaller in size. Little dents to gutters. And here's some air conditioning dents, and there's some better ones later on. Your coils are very susceptible to hail. They're a thin metal that's easily dented, and this is another good surface to show you the direction and the size of the storm. So this is the annex roof, and you've got some damages to the coating on it. It's a newer roof, right? It's from one of the last storms we had maybe 5 years ago.
Yes, maybe.
And so they installed a good roofing system, and then they put a coat, an aluminum or elastomeric coat on top of it. And that coat has some damages to it, but the roofing substrate is okay. And you can kind of see this is a little bit of a blister where it's raised, and so that's a little more susceptible to getting hit and damaged. Blisters are pretty common on coats. It's just a little bit of moisture trapped when they apply it, and then causes it to expand, which is a soft spot basically. So there's a good photo showing just some damages to the coat there with the chalk. And then here's a good photo showing the air conditioning unit again with the coils, showing the size and frequency and direction of the storm.
How do you say direction? How does that tell you what direction it's coming from? I see size, but...
Yes, sir. So whatever direction that coil is facing, usually there's only damages on 2 of the 4 sides.
I see. Okay, I got you.
And most storms come from the southwest, but where y'all are kind of centrally located, you can get some from the north as well, and you can get some swirl patterns if there's tornadic activity with them as well. So it's just to give you the information on the storm is all. So then I want to get into some of the metals. You can see some small dents to metals, and then shingles are more susceptible to wind and hail. So these missing tabs there are a result of wind, but we'll get in some photos later on that show some hail impacts as well to the shingles, and they're more easily damaged by a hail event. Shingles are. So there's some impacts to the shingles from the hail. You can see the dark spots kind of top of the roof towards the ridge. Those are fresh hail impact marks. And then here's some more metal surfaces where you can see some spatter marks to them. And then here is a different annex roof that's a membrane roof, which is a TPO or PVC product. That is what you see most common on low slope roofs nowadays. And you see lots of spatter marks on here. This type of roof, if it gets damaged by hail, you're going to see fractures as well as the spatter marks. And that would be a circular, almost moon-shaped type fracture to the membrane itself, which then would allow water to damage it. Usually this type of roof, if it's newer, will withstand closer to 2-inch hail. There's a small dent to a metal flashing. There's some more spatter marks to the roofing membrane. And here's the probation, just some screen damages, some vinyl window damage. Vinyl's easily damaged by hail. There's some chips to it too. You can see how that beading around the windows, they get weathered with sun and UV exposure, and they become brittle or very easily damaged by hail, very susceptible. And then here's some small dents to the metals again. You can see that there's a good dent. You can see when you put the chalk to it. When you don't chalk them, they're sometimes very hard to see when they're smaller like this. And so the metal portion is important. We'll go over, when we go over the spreadsheet with you with the dollar figures for the damages, to understand what we're dealing with when it comes to metal damages, because you've got 2 types of damages to roofing systems. You've got functional damage, meaning it's damaged the roof's intended purpose of water shedding and keeping a building dry. Then you have cosmetic, which we refer to as aesthetic impairment damages, which are just visual damages that aren't affecting the roof's capabilities or intended purpose of shedding water. Most of these dents and most of the roof damages that you see from this storm were aesthetic impairment. They weren't or aren't affecting the roof's function. Here's a close-up of a shingle hail impact. You can see it's a little bit darker. The asphalt below the granules get exposed, and over time that'll start to deteriorate and it becomes lighter, and it can allow water to go into the building. So this is a example of functional damage to shingle. Here's another metal roof. You can see some small dents in about the middle, bottom third. And there's some closer ups of it. You can see some spatter where it just cleaned the dust off, but then you can see some dents too mixed in. Here's some views from underneath of one of the sheds. It looks like a storage building. You can see little dents coming through. And here's some spatter again showing the size. And it'll be different sizes at different locations, right? You can be hail is sporadic. It could be one side of the street, it could be 2 inches, and the other side of the street, it could be a ½ inch. I want to get to the YMCA building real fast. It's I think the last one. So here's the YMCA building. The membrane roof held up pretty well. There's some dents to flashings. You can see the little dents there. They're aesthetic. They're not affecting the roof. But what I wanted to show you is you had a little bit bigger hail, about 1.5 inches at the YMCA area. So this is just an idea of what the storm was. It was a good storm. There was a lot of hail in it. The size wasn't too big. Most roofs should withstand 1 inch hail. And there are some small dents to the metal roof as well at YMCA that are aesthetic. So jumping into the report, what I wanted to highlight for you that you have a printout of, and this is easier to follow than, so the report itself with the estimate is 167 pages. This 8-page printout that we have for you gives you the detail per building, so it's a lot easier to follow. You don't have to get into the weeds on the estimate of damages itself. So if any of the buildings that you're curious, this will give you the description of the damages, whether it's aesthetic or functional, air conditioning, gutters, that type of detail. We won't go through each building individually unless y'all want to, but it's an easy reference sheet for y'all to follow to look at any of the individual buildings that you want to see what the damages observed were. The main thing I wanted to highlight and go over with you is the spreadsheet here. That's a statement of loss. This is the estimated damages, the dollar figures on one page. So it's easier to follow when you're looking at the actual damages. The main thing to understand here, and that the county will have as a takeaway today to decide, is you have the non-aesthetic or functional damages, which is that third column. And then how the claim process works, you have a depreciation column and an actual cash value claim. So you have replacement cost coverage, but how your coverage reads is just like it would on probably your homeowner's policy, is we don't release the replacement cost until the work is done and the costs are incurred. So we'll release a portion up front, and then when you do the work and turn in the invoices, there's a final payment to bring you up to the replacement cost.
And this sheet that was passed out has 916,000, not 1.1.
Okay, so it may, there were 2 sheets, and that one was an old one. There had been an updated one.
So this is old.
Yep. So that one didn't have the aesthetic. They just accidentally left off the aesthetic portion of the courthouse roof. So that's the only difference.
But this is a non-aesthetic. This is what needs to be done. We got to do that.
That would be our suggestion.
Yeah.
Yep. So the aesthetic portion, you have coverage up to $500,000 on aesthetic impairments, which what we talked about are dents to metal roofs that aren't affecting the roof's function. The roofs are fine, in other words, but there are some dents which is considered damage. But it's just aesthetic. It's not affecting the the roof itself. Did you have a question, Commissioner?
No.
Okay. So with that said, I can tell you what most counties will do is they'll review these damages.
And do that.
Unless there's an older roof that's just aesthetic damage that needs to be replaced anyways, and then a lot of times they'll be like, well, now's a good time to replace that roof because there is coverage up to $500,000 for that type of damages if you want to pursue those repairs. If the county, if it's a new roof, it's in good condition, you don't want to replace it, most of them will say, we don't want to claim that, we don't want to have it on our record, and then it won't affect any future claim on new damages. What you don't want to do is to take the funds and not do the work, because then you could impact the county in the future if there's damages from a different storm. If we've already paid for it, we're not going to pay for the same roof a second time if it hasn't been replaced. If it's been replaced, it's, everything's good, it's a new roof. It'll be covered on any future storms.
Let me ask you this, is TAC self-insured? Do y'all get premiums from everybody, or do y'all have a reinsurance company like Lloyd's of London?
We do.
You have what? Lloyd's of London or what?
It's a big, Lloyd's is on there, but there's I don't know how many, maybe 20 different companies. So and that's a great question, and it helps to understand how your normal insurance companies operate, right? We keep a certain percentage on every claim, a dollar amount. And then anything above that dollar amount for an individual claim or an event like a hurricane, we buy reinsurance. So reinsurance is insurance on insurance. So that's to protect the pool from any big event or
any real devastating.
Right.
Yes.
The pool takes on the first $5 million
and then
of
Right.
the reinsurance. TAC
Right.
does the risk management pool.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we take our program to London, Bermuda, and in the United States. There's reinsurance locally, and different companies will want to buy different thresholds.
Mm-hmm.
So some will take up to the first 20 million, some will take 20 to 100 million, and some above that.
Right.
I think we go up quite a bit above that too. So it is just a way to protect the pool and to protect the program.
Right. But it's all coming out of Lloyd's of London.
But if we were, to like cash out one building,
Uh-huh.
it would only affect, you talked about that you needed to do the work, or
We suggest.
you suggest, because if you had a claim later and you took the money and you didn't do the work, then that would be factored in to a new claim.
Yes, sir.
And that, like, let's for instance here, the YMCA building.
Yep.
It's shown to be 7,100 and some change, non-aesthetic. So that needs to be done, correct?
Yeah, those would be more like combing air conditioning units or windows or anything like that. We would suggest to be done, but even so, just so you know, our aesthetic impairment only applies to roofs. So even if there's siding that's just dented and it's not affecting it, we put that under the functional because it's more visible to the public. So that could be a mixture of siding, but we can look at the details too to see what the YMCA damages are. We've got an estimate for every building, and so you have that detail, and we've sent it over to the county already. So if you take it to your maintenance department or whoever's going to oversee the work, they can follow that to see what work we would suggest the county have done. And then, like, if you want to take the aesthetic impairment on just one building, you can do that, or multiple buildings. Or if you don't want to take it on any, that's y'all's choice. Like we talked about, whatever you decide, just know the information that we can pay up to $500,000 if the county wants to pursue claims for aesthetic impairments. And if you do take it, we suggest you have the work done so that it wouldn't affect a future claim.
So you're saying...
Did you give consideration on the historical courthouse So it has to be done a little bit differently from, the other
Buildings.
repairs.
Yeah.
Like we have to go through, the state to
The
get
Historic
approval before
Commission.
we even, do anything.
And I would caution you that the courthouse numbers here our estimate is probably low because historic courthouses are always a lot more expensive to work on than what the estimating software provides. And that's not an issue. Like for the windows, for example, I bet our number's low. So when
Right, because we have the old antique glass that was in them up here, and
Yeah.
this is just a regular glass, isn't it?
yeah, so
Some of that glass can't be replaced though, right? I mean, with the original type of glass, because
you may
it
just
doesn't
have to go
exist anymore.
back with the single pane, but just for a contractor to work on a historic building, they're going to charge more than they would for any other building, right? Just because
Of course they will.
there's more risk, there's more overhead, safety concerns. So what I want to just indicate is this is just an estimated number. If it ends up being more, we owe for it.
Right.
Leo, did you see if there's any of the antique glass that's available to anybody?
So the glass
who
would
could
be
do it
just your
with
normal
the same
coverage. The
type?
500
We've got
is just like the
two
metal
bids
roofs.
right now that
I speak up, I can't hear
we've
you.
got 2 bids right now that I'm reviewing for the glass.
For the antique glass?
That'll be on the first quarter of July.
Okay.
So you want to give those to us and then we can adjust our number as needed.
Okay.
Okay, so what I was clarifying was when he said if it ends up being more, that they would cover it, and I thought that was up to the 500,000, but you said,
So the glass is functional damage, so that just falls under your normal limits,
Okay.
not the 500,000.
Yeah.
And so you've got tons of, you're not going to have any limits issue on any of the functional damage.
right. So is what you're saying is that we could, on the column that's the aesthetic impairment, we could pick and choose up to 500,000 of things that needed to be done.
Yep.
But on that, we'd have to be pretty sure about the estimates, because if that goes over, then the 500,000, then we would be
On the hook for the
on the hook for
difference.
that. Okay.
So the photos of the metal roofs most of them look like they're in pretty good shape. They're fairly new roofs.
I would be opposed to doing the aesthetic work on the deal, because we got storms coming all the time. I mean, you do it and another
Yeah,
one
and
comes
then
through on the
yeah.
deal, but the functional stuff, we just got to get replaced, and we got the coverage
Yes, sir.
for that.
Yep.
I was talking, I see Jim Hardy back there, who represents Zurich Insurance Company that insures historic courthouses that come up here. Y'all don't have any reinsurance with Zurich? Do
They
you?
don't have
Probably
all
in-
the different layers.
Probably in the pool somewhere.
Zurich Re might be on our
Could definitely be in those layers.
layer somewhere. Yeah, all the big players are involved, and if they want to bid on it, they submit a bid. And
Well, Jim was telling me that their company writes actually insurance for historic buildings,
Yes,
right?
sir.
It's like-
It's a historical program that they developed through MDP programs, and it focuses on historic structures. And they have to be, they like to see them sprinklered, things like this. And I understand that you guys are having the glass issue. It is hard to find some of the older glass, single pane, but they can make it and make it look like historical glass, absolutely.
And that's where like the historic commission's going to be involved, and they're going to approve or tell you what you can and can't do. So I would definitely let them know if you haven't already, and they may have some resources as well.
Have you reached out? We got a local and state. Have y'all?
The state's already given us the green light to make repairs to the glass as long as we go back with like or similar glass.
Which is the antique glass,
Yeah.
right?
And
Like
antique
or-
antique or like glass of the same thickness and size.
I know.
All right, so that,
I mean, we need to.
it's all in semantics, isn't it? That's why you have lawyers. I just love that. That we can litigate the hell out of stuff like that, So it says similar on the thing. So it's just glass that kind of looks like it doesn't have to be antique that they make
Yeah,
it.
it doesn't have to be antique.
But it's not paned like the normal glass is, right?
We need to figure out.
Yeah. That'd be an
I don't know what you can do, Jim. I mean,
Well, that's
you-
the difference between a standard carrier and a historical
That's what I was
program.
thinking too.
That the historical programs go back to the original historical nature. That's what they're called.
But let's clarify, they're not doing the work, they're providing the coverage.
The
which-
coverage, that's
Which
it.
we do.
Yes, sir.
We provide historic coverage as well.
oh, you do?
Yes.
Yes, and that's what you have on the courthouse.
Okay. So any historical building, is that the only historical building that the county has is the courthouse? That
we cover, yes.
there's, yeah,
Well, there's the old jail that I think is considered a historical building.
So you can elect,
that old jail?
But I believe it's the city of Granbury that covers that one.
Right.
For
so-
now,
Right, for now.
yeah.
But the city's got a bunch of buildings that got old homes that are on the historical list and all that kind of stuff, but we only have the one building as far as the county is concerned,
Yes, that we
right?
cover, uh-huh.
And
So-
y'all-
And Commissioner, you go back to your question earlier. On page 7, it gives a synopsis of the building that we were talking about.
Page 7 of their subsequent report.
Yes, sir, of this estimate report. It just gives you in small detail what the damages were
which
for
building?
each facility. He was asking about the YMCA,
Okay.
and it does break it down a little bit there on the damages and
So there was a little bit of damage to the synthetic stucco.
Well, the reason we're talking about it, we have a contract pending to sell that, you know about that.
Yes, sir.
So it's nothing functional, the hail didn't do anything functional to anything, correct?
To the roof. There's some functional damage to this, a little bit of the siding.
That's that 7,000
Yep.
and change number.
So that would be, you'd want to probably get a bid to, they would have to basically redash and repaint the affected walls on any of the stucco from where the hail came from, that side of the. It's a synthetic stucco, which would be referred to as an EIFS.
Well, since it occurred during the county ownership with the county coverage on the thing, we can go ahead and get it done then.
Yes, sir. It's covered under this claim.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But not that we don't have to do the aesthetics.
That's just your choice. There is coverage if it ends up being that you have to in order for them to take it or something like that. That's something you probably want to address with them and the court to decide if they
Yeah.
want to. Hey, we just paid for that roof a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And it was the same then. It was just small dents then, aesthetic.
Yeah.
So it's dented again.
Okay. We just have to see if it's in closing right now, where it's in the title company, so all the contracts have been signed, so
Yeah.
unless it's addressed.
Well, you have documentation here in this that it's aesthetic, the roof is aesthetic only. So that might help.
Okay.
So from here, we will issue the functional damage payment, and then we'll wait to hear from the county, the court's decision if y'all want to pursue any of the aesthetic damages.
Well, let me ask you this then, on the aesthetic damage, on building X, that you've documented, you've got in here, and we don't do anything about it. And next year we have a major hailstorm and it gets damaged again and more. Do you all would you start over
We'd start over.
since we didn't make a claim?
It would just be a new claim subject to any,
But you wouldn't take that out of it.
no, it'd just be based off the age of the roof, not necessarily that it had aesthetic
Yeah.
damages from before.
So you-
Motion?
it is.
So, yeah, it wouldn't affect a future claim. We would just address it as we would on any normal
Okay,
new
okay.
claim.
So the
Okay.
damage that's now plus any future damage will be documented when you did your next appraisal or assessment.
So say next year, or 10 years, 5 years down the road, you get a bigger storm that causes functional damage. You didn't replace them, after this storm and you didn't claim it, so nothing was paid on our end, we would pay just like a normal claim, your full replacement cost after you did the work.
Okay, because you wouldn't say, well, y'all already had that part damaged, we're not paying it.
No. But if we paid,
Just asking.
if we paid for it and you didn't do it, then that's
Yeah,
when
well,
we
that's
would subtract
fair,
that
yeah.
from the.
That makes sense.
Yep. But yeah, and every county's different. We just present you the information and the facts of the storm and kind of give you the coverages that are available, and we'll await your decision on how you want to proceed with the aesthetic portion. So that's the main reason I wanted to come today, is to show you the photos and help you understand what you have available and to help you all make whatever the best decision is for the county.
Okay.
So your action items that,
We'll issue payment on the functional and await the county's decision on if they want to claim any of the aesthetic impairment damages.
And that total is about 82,000 for the
The aesthetic-
non-aesthetic.
The non-aesthetic, subject to the deductible, of course.
Yeah. So the deductible would come out of that 82?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, our deductible is 100,000, but we've also have the windows that I don't believe are included.
So it'll exceed, let me double check, because they might have the wrong deductible on here. The windows would be under your functional damage, so when you get the actual price of them, we'll adjust this number. So it'll be going up when we get the price of the window work. Does that include like scraping and painting any damaged paint, or is it just the glass?
Just the glass and the glazing.
Okay. So if there's damage to like the frame, and we'd have to look at the photos. Are there any wood frames on the metal, or is it?
It's a wood frame.
So
It's all wood frame, yeah.
that's one thing to consider, is when you're looking at it, if the paint's chipped, that's going to need to be scraped and repainted, which gets expensive as well in courthouses.
And what about the interior damage? I wasn't aware of that.
The interior would be included in this estimated number, but again, with it being a historic courthouse, it's probably going to end up being a little bit more than this. So when you get the bid and the information on what it's actually going to cost, you'll submit it to us. We'll review. If there's any questions or concerns, we'll go over it, and then we'll make adjustments as needed.
so is the interior damage considered
Functional? Yeah. The only thing that's considered aesthetic would be any of the roofs that's just not affecting the water shedding capability. The one roof that you want to do some work on is the annex that has the coat that's damaged. You just put a new coat basically down. They'd clean it, put a new coat down, and it would take you back to
Right.
pre-loss condition.
To me, it would be prudent that we handle all of the other buildings and do the historical courthouse as a standalone, because before we can actually do any work, unless I'm mistaken, we have to get approval from the state and the local historical commissions both before we do anything. So I think we've got to handle those separately. Is that going to be an issue?
No, and that is probably prudent to do.
I think, because since they, tell us when we can and can't,
Yep.
we don't want everything else hanging off of that.
Yes, sir. So from our end, you have 2 years to do the work and to recover any depreciation that was applied on the damages. So you have plenty of time to get it all done.
Right. Yeah.
But as far as the historical courthouse, it's only aesthetic damage.
To the roof.
Okay.
So the interior, you had a picture of the wood blinds.
That's
You lose 3
functional.
windows.
Yeah, but just when
You
you're
lose 3
thinking of the
windows or
two,
2.
just remember the
Oh.
aesthetic is only roof.
In my office,
Everything on the sides or
3, I
inside
think.
is
I mean,
functional.
it got a lot of, there's windows I didn't realize it got.
Yeah.
In the courthouse.
Yeah.
It looks like it was kind of a sideways. There's
Yeah, it
strong
was.
Come in,
winds.
southwest.
Yes, sir.
That one came in, looked like southwest, based on the damage.
Yeah, and that's the direct, like when
Yeah.
they investigate, that's the direction it seemed to come. You had an older storm in the courthouse on dents on the north and east side. That wasn't related to this storm. It's already got old dents up there. The dents from this storm aren't any worse than the
But I think we've
old
got to
storm.
keep it separate.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There was a small leak on the courthouse roof. I think y'all already fixed it. It was a flat panel where the seam came together. Just the sill had deteriorated from the sun. It wasn't related to hail, and it was just a small drip, if I remember. I saw some photos. I didn't see it myself, but I'm assuming you already got that
Yeah,
fixed.
we already addressed that.
That was at the historical courthouse.
And that's just with the historic courthouse, just so you know, that's just a maintenance issue. You probably want to check about every year because the sun's going to do the same thing over time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what we have for you today.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
good job.
Appreciate everyone's time. And when I was here 4 or 5 years ago, I had hair. Now I don't. So hopefully I'll.
Is that working for